Ready?
Okay. Okay, we're good, Rex.
All right. Thank you for coming. We're going to start the July 11th meeting of the Planning Commission. On the agenda, we have call to order. Who all's here?
Yes. Okay. Commissioner Berg.
Here.
Commissioner Marino.
Here.
Chairman Miller.
Here.
Commissioner Davis.
Here.
Commissioner Stevens. Here. He's here. And Commissioner Terry.
Here.
And Commissioner Aguirre relayed she would not be here tonight.
Okay, public comment. Is there anyone who would like to make a comment that is not related to what's on the agenda this evening? Okay. Hearing none, then let's get to our public hearing. Can we have a staff report? What are we talking about?
Yes, so tonight on the agenda is a proposal for legislative amendments. It's related to our comprehensive plan, specifically the Coos Bay Estuary Management Plan, and also some text amendments that will go along with that. Tonight, the Planning Commission is being asked only to make a recommendation to council for a final decision, so there will be no decision made tonight. To summarize the amendments, one, we're asking to repeal what is volume 3 of the city's current comprehensive plan, and that is essentially a standalone Coos Bay Estuary Management Plan, and replace it by adoption, or with adoption by reference, of the multi-jurisdictional Coos Bay Estuary Management Plan that's really going to be maintained by Coos County at that level. So we'll just have it by reference. That will be the official plan. Another piece of this is that we need to update the chapter in our development code that deals with how we implement the estuary management plan. And so we're proposing to repeal and replace in its entirety what is known as Chapter 17.352 of the development code. And the substantial changes in that proposal are that we want to clarify that all the uses and activities within the estuary management units must be reviewed for compliance with the adopted plan. This is standard practice. We just want to put it in the text so it's clear. We want to identify the applicable estuary management unit types. We want to clarify that anytime there is a conflict between what is allowed in the zone, underlying zoning district versus what is allowed in the estuary, that estuary management plan overrides, it trumps, and it's the one that controls. We want to clarify what are the application contents and what the review process is, and it just follows our procedure standards, so it's just another clarification piece. And then we want to identify the actual approval criteria. So that's really just kind of a cleanup of our development code. A third piece of this proposal is that we want to amend what's known as Coos Bay Development Code Section 17.360.020 to allow staff, or i.e. the director, to initiate an amendment to a comprehensive plan text or map, the zoning map, or the text of the Coos Bay Development Code. It's not uncommon that you have staff or planning commission or city council and or an outside applicant initiate amendment. In our case, staff needs to ask planning commission and also council before ever moving forward. So it delays processes. So this is just trying to make the process more efficient. And then the last piece is an amendment to Coos Bay Development Code 17.360.040 to require that before the city were to make a amendment to the estuary plan, that they receive the written recommendation of what will eventually be a joint steering committee that's going to help guide those changes. So we just want to make it clear as part of any future amendment, that's a required piece of the process. We need to have that recommendation in hand. And so just a very brief background, Planning Commission and City Council held a joint work session on this back in December, and they both agreed, you and council agreed, to move forward with the proposed amendments Those amendments were then delayed to allow more opportunity for public comment. So we had another 2 or 3 months of public comment, and all of that public comment that was received has essentially been incorporated in your staff report. Since that time, since official application of the proposed amendments, we received 3 additional comments in writing, and those were sent to planning commissioners in advance of tonight's hearing. I also have them available to show and go over if we need to. But those comments were really focused on the next part of this project, of a concern that we really need a comprehensive update to the plan, whereas the proposals are just kind of cleaning up some technical issues and aligning what are the 3 jurisdictions involved, Coos Bay, North Bend, Coos County, aligning those plans as they're supposed to be, but have kind of become 3 separate plans over time. So the comments are really asking the local jurisdictions to commit to a future comprehensive update and to do so in a timely manner, and to look at the composition of what the steering committees, different committees that will be involved, what those are made of, who makes up those groups. So our consultant is online and going to give Planning Commission a more kind of detailed description of what's going on, but they've also presented a memo to address those comments, and Planning Commission has also got that memo. We'll go over it tonight. So in conclusion, you have the full proposal before you. It's available to the public, all the details. It's pretty long. I'm gonna, though, pass it over now to Amanda Ferguson, who is online, so that she can in more detail explain what we are asking. So Amanda, go ahead and speak. Oh, Amanda can't hear anything.
Take off mute.
Oh, gosh. Memo to address those comments, and Planning Commission has also got that memo. We'll go over it tonight. So in conclusion, you have the full proposal before you. It's available to the public, all the details. It's pretty long. I'm gonna, though, pass it over now to Amanda Ferguson, who is online, so that she can in more detail explain what we are asking. Okay. So Amanda, go ahead.
Greetings, everyone. Thank you, Planning Commission, for hosting this tonight. I'm really pleased to be before you. It's been a long time coming. Chelsea, is it okay if I share my screen?
It is, yes. Let me share screen.
So if you can let me know if you can actually see my screen, then we'll move on. Hearing nothing, I will go ahead and go forward. So, I am Amanda Ferguson. I am with the University of Oregon's Institute for Policy Research and Engagement, and we have been contracted by DLCD to assist the city of Coos Bay, the city of North Bend, and the county of Coos to work on adopting the Coos Bay Estuary Management Plan. I have a brief presentation to present to you tonight that kind of goes over the background of the CABEB update process, discusses briefly part 1 and part 2 recommendations, as well as the recommendations we are making for local amendments. If you have any questions, so please do not hesitate to stop and ask me, and we will continue to, this presentation is designed to be part of the public record, so it's a little wordy, but I will promise not to read all of it. As you know, the Coos Bay Estuary Management Plan, which I typically refer to as the CABEP, was developed in the early 1980s. It was adopted originally in 1984 as part of Volume 2 of the Coos County Comprehensive Plan, as well as Volume 3 of the Coos Bay Comprehensive Plan, and by reference for North Bend as part of Section 12 of their comprehensive plan. It's been amended over time by each agency, but it's never been updated. In 2015, the Partnership for Coastal Watersheds, which includes staff from Coos County, the City of Coos Bay, North Bend, and the Port, worked together with IPRI and their students through the community planning workshops to create a series of documents that included the Coos Estuary Land Analysis, the Coos Estuary Map Atlas, and the Community's Lands and Waterway Data Source. That project started in 2015. In about 2019, they were presented to the jurisdictions. It incorporated at that time recommendations that the land use analysis, I should say, incorporated recommendations for a full comprehensive update of the CABEP. It also, though, included alternate recommendations for both either no changes or for a partial update. The jurisdictions in 2019 decided that based on financial and staff resources at the time, they would pursue the minor revisions to the CABEP, which was sort of the middle ground. Unfortunately, COVID hit, and we were delayed for 2 years. In 2022, DLCD provided some additional funds in order to kickstart the process again. And we began working on that, finalizing documents for the current proposal that's before you. Draft versions of the amended Part 1 and Part 2 of the Volume 2, which is the Coos Bay, the Coos County Comprehensive Plan, Volume 2, were made available on the county's website in December of 2022. And we held a series of open houses and map displays in January and February. The Coos Bay Planning Commission passed a motion in January 2023 to recommend that the City Council initiate legislative amendments related to the adoption of the 2023 CABEP. The City Council voted unanimously to adopt that recommendation January 17th, 2023. We were originally planning on bringing this forward to you in April of 2023 and doing the PAPA, the Posting Management Plan Amendment, as of March 1. However, based on the comments that we received in January and February, we extended the public comment period from March to May 26th and included additional open houses and presentations throughout the community. We received a lot of comments in that time period. The comments received were incorporated into our draft documents that are presented as part of the PAPA and are incorporated within one of the appendices to the revision memo that was given to you as part of the staff report. The current proposal is a partial plan update that includes what we consider the minimum necessary to update the 1984 CABEP in sort of 3 categories of improvements. This includes document structure, plan usability, and land use and legal framework. Within Part 1, we are recommending that the CABEP be digitized, taking 7 different documents and combining it into one digital file and adding internal hyperlinks, and then digitizing the maps that are currently in Mylar format, just physical formats, so that we can then put them online for an automatic viewer and GIS and allow the public to be able to easier access both the document itself as well as the maps. We also inserted a purpose and content section to each section of the plan and created some additional diagrams. We are recommending that those digitized maps and the new background maps, which were in the map atlas, be utilized throughout by reference in Part 1 and Part 2. We're also recommending that the special considerations map, which was originally a combined version of some of those old Mylar maps, be removed. Under plan usability, the real intent here is to bring all of the management units from all 3 versions of the CABEP into one document again. So Volume 2 of the Coos County Comprehensive Plan, Part 1, will include all management units from Coos Bay, Coos County, as well as North Bend. We also resolved as part of that process some conflicts between the management units, although I want to note that no changes are proposed to the management unit boundaries or their uses within this document. We reinserted the City of Coos Bay's policies that only exist in the Coos Bay version into the countywide CABEP. That includes a commercial clam harvest and the East Cushing Slough Road Widening Project, which is policy number 71. And we are recommending additional policies to maintain and update this document now that it has been recreated as 1 versus 3. That includes amending the existing citizen involvement policy to recognize the diverse need for citizen involvement and the multi-jurisdictional coordination process. As part of that multi-jurisdictional coordination, we're recommending the creation of a joint steering committee that would include appointed members from Coos County, Coos Bay, North Bend, the tribes, the Port Authority, and the community, who would function as the advisory board to maintain the document as 1. We are also recommending changes to policy number 36, which is plan update, to establish a comprehensive review and update process for the consolidated plan. And that is really leading into what would be considered a phase 2 or phase 2 through 5 to get to a new comprehensive plan update. But within part 1, phase 1, we did a lot of Scrivener's errors, modifications, which are spelling errors, typos, subject verb, etc. Those types of mistakes that have gotten into the document over many years of being reprinted and reorganized. We also updated local, state, and federal agency titles as appropriate, updated permit names, and updated references to the state and federal statutes. We've continued to include a comprehensive list of definitions in the CABEP. This is for use by all 3 jurisdictions when we're referencing anything that's occurring within the estuary. We've amended a few of those definitions to meet current state and federal regulations. That's part 1. Part 2 is the factual basis and inventories of the CABEP. Within that document, we have really tried to incorporate the 2019 data source and the map atlas. To do that, we've removed sections 2, 4, and 5 and renumbered those sections, and in their place adopted the data source as section 8 and the map atlas as section 9. I don't know if you can see this very well, but this is a picture of what the revisions mode of the table of contents for part 2 looks like. You'll see again that sections 2, which is the setting, section 4, which is the physical characteristics and biological resources, and section 5, which is the socioeconomic resources, have been deleted. And instead, they have been replaced with the content that is found in section 8, which is the community lands and waterways data source. And in addition, the Coos Estuary and Shoreline Atlas, the map atlas, is found in section 9. Those maps are intended to provide a background resource for future work on the CABEP, and they are not regulatory in nature. In order to adopt Part 1 and Part 2 amendments of the CABEP, though, we have to modify a series of implementing ordinances within all 3 jurisdictions. That includes Coos County's Code, Chapter 3, the City of Coos Bay's Comprehensive Plan and your Development Code, as well as North Bend's Code, which is Chapter 18.88. So we will be going through a series of public hearings before each jurisdiction, and yours is the first in order that has taken comments. As part of the broad brush of the implementing ordinance changes includes recommending use of the CABEP as the controlling document. So rather than having 3 versions of the CABEP, we'll have 1 moving forward. Relocating, again, all of those management units from the individual respective ordinances into that controlling document, and amending references to the maps to reflect the newly digitized MILARs. In Coos Bay itself, we are amending the comprehensive plan to supersede resolution number 84-4, which was originally adopted, the 1984 Estuary Management Plan, to adopt by reference the 2023 version. This will repeal Volume 3 of the Coos Bay Comprehensive Plan in its entirety. The other changes that we're proposing tonight include modifications to Chapter 17.352 of the Development Code. This would include repealing and replacing in entirety this Chapter 17.352, which is the estuarine and coastal shorelines uses and activities section, to make sure that we've included clarification that all uses and activities within the CABEMP management units have to be reviewed for compliance with the adopted CABEMP, which as it's located in the Coos County Comprehensive Plan. Identification of applicable management unit types, clarification that the CABEMP controls if zoning designations, regulations, or restrictions contained elsewhere in Title 17 are inconsistent or conflicting, as well as clarification that the intent is that contents and the review process for applications will align with other elements of Chapter 17, where it doesn't currently. So this is an amendment that is proposed by staff in order to make the process for future modifications or application review easier. So that would amend chapters, that would do direct references back to 17.130.040 and 17.130.180. Staff is also recommending that we amend Chapter 17.360.020 to allow the staff to initiate an amendment. So rather than the process that was used this time around, which had to go to the Planning Commission and the City Council to initiate a Type 4 amendment, the staff would be able to do so on their own. However, we're also further recommending that Chapter 17.360.040 require a written recommendation from the CABEMP Joint Steering Committee as part of that application to amend the CABEMP planning document. So again, so that we keep those projects aligned. Do you have questions?
Lisa's what to say.
Commissioners, are there any questions? No. Can you hear us, Amanda?
I can,
Okay.
yes.
I have just one question is, does everybody here understand all this? I'm a little in the dark. I realize we have a comprehensive plan. The state says we have to do this, but I'm a little in the dark in this. I guess I'm looking for more of a layman's terms. What are we changing? What are we doing?
What are we doing? Basically, the intent of this entire thing, of the current update, is to make the document more usable. That is both making it a digitized version, so rather than a paper-only version or a printed copy, we're making this going to be available so in a digitized format so you can search throughout the document online. We're also making sure that we're trying to realign 3 jurisdictions, their different versions of the Coos Bay Estuary Management Plan into one. So most of the changes that we're really recommending are based on those 2 kind of pockets of work. As far as the usability, we're also making it cleaner, taking out Scrivener's errors, taking out old references to things that don't exist anymore, since the document is now 40 years old. But the major elements that we're really changing are associated with trying to bring the document back into one. By allowing it to divide over the years, it's made it really complicated to update. And the goal is to eventually do a full comprehensive update. And in order to do that, we need to realign the document back into one version.
But it sounds like you're leaving a lot of kind of loopholes for further development later on. There's a lot, if I understand this correctly, there's quite a bit of content that can be changed later, added, or deleted. I guess I'm not sure about that part.
Well, as far as future modifications, the CABEMP itself the staff is recommending a further comprehensive revision of the CABEMP. That would include a really extensive public process that would better integrate updated scientific and community information, as well as probably revised mapping. But that is going to take a lot of staff and resources. As part of that, the resolution that Chelsea mentioned earlier is being proposed that will be presented to both the city councils and the county commission that would try to define what that comprehensive update would look like and identify a citizen advisory committee and a technical advisory committee as well as make a clear commitment by all three jurisdictions to pursue funding to do that. So
But
it's not, we're not writing in loopholes per se into the KBEP. The KBEP itself is, we're not changing the structure of the KBEP, nor most of the policies, nor any of the management units at present. However, we do see that actually there might be a need to do some of that work, including amending management units in the future. However, that will take a much more extensive process.
excuse me, to paraphrase perhaps, is what we're really doing here, it seems like kind of, not to put too fine a point on it, but almost kind of a clerical exercise of combining these languages into one document so it can be dealt with more efficiently in the future, not really changing anything now in terms of how the plan works or what it does or doesn't allow.
Correct, absolutely. The only change is that we'd be reintroducing an advisory committee that was originally part of the 1984 document, but that was eliminated sometime in the late 80s, early 90s. And we're recommending that it be reconstituted. So there would be an advisory committee made up of staff or representatives from all three jurisdictions, as well as the tribe, the port, and the community, that would oversee that later public process for expansion and comprehensive review.
But probably, I mean, if you'll excuse perhaps if our eyes are for kind of glazing over a little bit on this, perhaps it's only me, but I'm not sure. Anyway, but so some of the real meat of the thing and the real changes that I think we've all recognized that have had to do with anything with this huge document, none of that's happening now. It's just really kind of re-editing and
Okay.
redoing. Am I correct in saying that?
I think in essence, yes. The changes that we're proposing are very small. They really are, we did document a lot of suggestions by the community for what to incorporate into phase 2 or later phases, and that will be part of the resolution.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you for the clarification.
Do we have time for another question there? On the, oh, there we go. About the steering committee, I saw mention of representatives from local tribes. Is there going to be a spot? I think both Coquel Indian Tribe and Confederate tribes of the Coos, Lower Umpqua, and Siuslaw Indians both have kind of a vested interest in this plan. So is there going to be, are we allocating a space on that committee for both of those tribes here?
We are recommending, so yes.
Okay.
No.
And then also on the amendment 17360020, allow staff to initiate an amendment to the comprehensive plan text or map. So right now the process is staff needs to go to Planning Commission and then to council just to initiate. So does this mean that you can begin that and bring it directly for approval at the Planning Commission or the City Council level?
So what it means is, rather than go through the two separate meetings, the ask, hey, can we even bring this application to you? It's staff can have the application in hand, and then you're only reviewing it once. You still have the ability to say, I don't like that, or I want changes, but
Okay.
yeah.
And that's why I just want to make sure I was reading that
Yeah.
correctly. But that, yeah.
In regards to that steering committee or whatever we're calling it, in the most recent public comment, the gentleman that wrote it in listed a group of categories for people to be drawn from. Is that for the same committee? Is that the same?
No, he was speaking specifically to the Community Advisory Committee,
Which
or
is not-
a citizen advisory committee that would be formed for phase 2.
And that's not part of this steering committee?
That's correct. That's in addition to. So they would be a community group that would advise the steering committee.
Okay. The categories that he described, is that similar to the categories that would be selected for the steering committee or not?
It's a bit broader. The categories that he described incorporate a lot more representatives. It's a very large group. The
Yeah.
steering committee would be limited to representatives that were appointed by the city council or the county commission to represent those jurisdictions. It would include at least 3 citizens in addition to representatives from each jurisdiction plus the tribe board.
I see, thank you.
Well, I guess, thanks, Jim. I think I wasn't understanding that correctly. So is there going to be an opportunity for representatives from both of the local tribes I referred to on the steering committee?
Yes. Both tribes, the tribal councils of both tribes are recognized as part of the steering committee.
Not the phase 2 committee, not the
The
citizen
phase
advisory.
2 committee would have probably representatives from each of them, but they wouldn't necessarily be from the tribal council.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
Okay, so Amanda, is that all you have for right now?
I think that's plenty. I'm happy to continue to
Okay.
answer questions if they come up.
Okay, so Commission, I know that we have a group of individuals here tonight to provide oral comment. We also have 2 signed up online. So we have, I don't know how you would like to start, if you want to take the 2 online first and then work through the House.
Let's do.
Okay, so let's start with Annie from Oregon Shores Conservation Coalition.
Hi there, is everyone hearing me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you, members of the City of Coos Bay Planning Commission. My name is Annie Merrill, and I'm the Land Use Coordinator speaking on behalf of Oregon Shores Conservation Coalition. And we are a nonprofit organization whose headquarters are in Coos Bay. And thank you for the opportunity to testify today on the Coos Bay Estuary Management Plan update. I would like to begin by recommending that the Commission continue this hearing to another date in the fall of this year and keep the public record open to follow the lead of the Coos County Planning Department and ensure better congruence between the multiple jurisdictions during this plan adoption process. Much of the current Phase 1 update focused on necessary technicalities to improve the plan usability and accuracy. These updates were badly needed, and we applaud the diligent work on the part of the planners to begin this process. What has been done is an important initial step to updating the Coos Bay Estuary Management Plan. However, we consider this Phase 1 update to merely be the beginning of a much more comprehensive Phase 2 update needed to address future challenges and prepare the community for the impacts of climate change. The value of Phase 1 is strictly contingent on the continuation of the Estuary Management Plan planning process to Phase 2. And the updates made to date are insufficient on their own without the Phase 2 planning for the estuary's long-term future. So there are 3 policy objectives related to a future Phase 2, which we recommend be established in the Phase 1 update and have not yet been adequately addressed. So the first is that a clear mandate is incorporated into the plan to continue the Phase 2 update in a timely manner. So this would hold planners accountable to seek the necessary support and funds and begin the process as soon as possible, particularly because that might take some time. A 10-year gap between Phase 1 and Phase 2 is simply unacceptable given all of the challenges that are to come with the climate crisis. The second recommendation is that a specific guidelines for developing a broadly representative citizen advisory committee to shepherd the Phase 2 update process be implemented in the plan language now. So while this committee is mentioned in the update, its composition and its structure was not addressed. And this is needed to ensure that the update process considers the broad needs of the community, and establishing the composition of this committee now sets a strong foundation for the next phase of planning by providing a clear direction for planners to begin recruiting members onto this committee. The immediate establishment of a technical committee should be made in addition to the Citizen Advisory Committee and the Steering Committee. to assist with ongoing needs to update data, seek funds, identify gaps in available planning tools, and improve mapping. And the suggested language changes and specific composition of these committees is contained within our written testimony to the commission, which was submitted last Friday. So you should all have that on record. And I encourage you all to review that supporting document as part of this testimony. We simply hope that this phase 1 update sets a strong foundation to continue the planning effort in the next phase, and we are in strong support of updating the KBUMP. So please consider our testimony, and I encourage you to pass the proposed KBUMP updates with our recommendations included to strengthen the phase 1 language so that more comprehensive planning can begin in phase 2. And thank you everyone for your time.
Thank you, Annie.
Thank you, Annie. Our next person signed up for public comment is Ashley Aduki with Rogue Climate.
Yes, hello. I'm going to keep my comment short and sweet because I'm under the weather tonight, but we'll be submitting a follow-up written comment. Yeah, my name is Ashley Aduki, and I work with Rogue Climate as South Coast Regional Coordinator with the office here in downtown Coos Bay. And we're really invested in helping support community comment opportunities on this KBUMP process because it is meant to be a community collaborative process. And in the last week in particular, there's been some confusion about public comment opportunities for this process between the 3 jurisdictions. So I just strongly encourage the Planning Commission tonight to have another opportunity to hear from community members, especially on the considerations of the Community Advisory Committee, Technical Advisory Committee, and an ad hoc committee, because those are our 3 different important structural basis for having a stronger comprehensive update. So yeah, I'll submit further comments from here, but thank you for having this opportunity to share and just encourage another opportunity for community members to engage outside of tonight's meeting. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Good, thank you.
And from here, I'll let you run down your list.
Okay, good, we have a list. Is Christine Moffett here? Good. Please state your name and address.
It's not normally over here.
I know, that's weird. I'm facing the audience. Christine Moffett, I live in Coos Bay at 700 Denise Place. Again, thank you everyone for holding this opportunity to visit with you about some things that are really, really important to our community. The estuary management plans of Oregon are essential components of coastal governance and management at the local level, with linkages to assure compliance to the larger ecosystems and the state and federal consistency to the Coastal Zone Management Act. I'm pleased to support this process that the city is undertaking and the consultants have really helped bring to the table. And I support the components that are addressed in the Oregon Shores proposal as well, that we need to ensure that we move forward to the second step in this, because if you look at the difference between what we know and what we did in the early 1980s to the present, we have to complete an update that brings in all the important scientific and hydrology, ecology, geology, and oceanography into any kind of revisions. And this needs to be done in a rapid fashion so that we don't lose the momentum that we have gained over this last year. I asked the city to work in concert with the county and the city of North Bend to address this need, and that we need a robust process that will include community members, all available science, cultural and economic expertise, bring it to the table. And we need this as well as technical committee, We're blessed to have expertise and information generated within the community and developed through programs at the South Slough Estuarine Research Reserve, OIMB, U of O, Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife, Oregon Sea Grant, federal agencies, a plethora of people that have been engaging in understanding how the estuary functions and how it can best be managed to meet the challenges that we see that were not visible to people in 1980. So I really want to make sure that it's an inclusive committee we have a technical expertise committee and we have a community committee that represents the wide uses and interests, which include our fishing community, the forest industry, environmental and conservation groups, tribal members, local businesses, tourism and recreational industry, and educational institutions. This robust group needs to seriously engage in understanding the present and the future uses and needs we have here in our community. Thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you, Christine. Next on the list is Jamie Faraday.
Good evening. Excuse me. I brought a frog. Jamie Faraday, 1017 Elm Avenue, Coos Bay. I did submit one through Chelsea. Did anybody not read it on this commission? Okay. Thank you for being honest, Patrick. So I'll read it again. But I just want to say, think of the things that have changed in the last 10 years in technology and information. Go back 40 years. It's astounding what we can do now with satellites and the technology we have now. And I commend the city and the county that have been working on this endeavor to revise this vital plan. And it deserves special consideration. I strongly endorse a full revision of the Coos County Estuary Management Plan. The cost of doing so will be returned in many ways to our community. This community has already invested time and effort into a citizen and stakeholder-based report with the 2019 Coos Estuary Land Use Analysis. From this executive summary, quote, based on the information, products, and feedback from the broader community ascribed below, and this was in 2016, the Partnership for Coastal Watersheds firmly recommends a full plan revision, not just an update. I was a participant in this process and can confirm the broad consensus from my fellow citizens for this recommendation. It was clear that a huge amount of information has come to light since the original KBEMP came out 4 decades ago that would warrant a review and reevaluation of the plan's pieces, including the management units, plan for dredge materials disposal, mitigation and restoration plan, which is something that we have done too little in this estuary. In addition to existing parts of the plan, citizen involvement with the Coos Estuary Land Use Analysis pointed out the imperative to include climate-related planning in the revision and create a document that was more and readily adaptive to change, such as sea level, ocean acidification, coastal erosion, fire, etc. In a following draft analysis, the Coos Bay Coastal Hazard Vulnerability Assessment and Adaptation Plan, which is something you should look up, in 2022, just last year, this urgency was noted locally, quote again, some municipal and private organizations are already taking steps to reduce their exposure to climate-related hazards, but nothing is being coordinated at the community or watershed level. I urge the city, along with the city of North Bend and the county, to commit to a full revision of the KBEMP by establishing a citizen advisory and technical committee, as you heard already. And I've got a whole list in there, and I'll leave it at that. And we can do this collaboratively. I am committed to give my energy into this. Perhaps we can find funds as a citizen community established group, and these are necessary to protect what we have left of a natural legacy we can't afford to spend unwisely. Thank you for your opportunity to comment.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jamie. So is there a Steve Miller in the house?
I'm Steve Miller, a citizen of Coos Bay at 1556 North 20th Street. I thank the Planning Commission for the opportunity to provide testimony on Phase 1 of the Coos Bay Estuary Management Plan update tonight. To begin, I strongly urge our city to commit to not just a Phase 1 update, but also to Phase 2 update. This additional commitment is critical for 3 reasons. First, the estuary plan has not received a complete update in more than 40 years, and Phase 1 alone will not bring the plan fully up to date. Management units of the current plan need to be reevaluated with new information and survey data. Information and data which in many cases is over a decade old will not provide a reliable basis for making management decisions that will be available in Phase 2. Second, Phase 2 will provide a needed plan for dredge material disposal. And third, Phase 2 will detail a mitigation and restoration plan for the Coos Bay Estuary. The estuary plan itself should outline an approach for reevaluating and revising that plan in the future, including the maps and natural resource inventories, which should be updated in the plan as new data is collected. Our county has language that creates a citizen advisory committee and a technical advisory committee that will guide a Phase 2 update, but the composition of those committees is not detailed. This is concerning because a diverse citizen advisory committee is necessary to ensure that the needs of the community are broadly represented. The committee should represent stakeholders in the fishing industry, commercial and recreational, the seafood industry, local business, tourism and recreation, the scientific community, the conservation and environmental community, each of the 2 local tribes, and citizens at large who reside in Coos Bay, North Bend, and the unincorporated areas of the county. In addition, there's one party that should not be represented on the committee, the port, and its development interests often present a conflict of interest. In addition, there is one party that, now about the Technical Advisory Committee. This committee would guide scientific and policy changes to the plan during the Phase 2 update. These might include scientists from OIMB, state agencies, the Partnership for Coastal Watersheds, land use and policy experts, and natural resource managers. To make sure tribal sovereignty is respected and built into the Coos Bay Estuary Management Plan, a section should outline how tribal engagement and consultation will be conducted in future plan updates and the ongoing management guided by the plan. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Steve. So Beverly.
Hi, good evening. My name's Beverly Segner, 1000 Ingersoll Avenue, Coos Bay. And I am, first of all, so appreciative of all of you being here and what you do for our community. Tonight I was going, meeting, dinner. So I know that's my decision for tonight, but you make it over and over again, so thank you. And the other thing I want to say is how I have been to several meetings and read some about this and listened to Amanda before at least twice. And the first time I was like, what in the heck is she talking about? So I am so impressed with all of you and the questions you're asking, just out of hearing it really maybe for the first time. So it's a very, I think it's a very wonderful thing that's going on, and I really appreciate what you were able to glean almost immediately. The important things of making sure that the tribes are involved, making sure that there's involvement of everybody in the community, making sure that, I think one thing that's really clear to me is that Phase 1 is exactly as you were saying. It's really sort of the sort of the nuts and bolts kind of verbiage and bringing it all into one whole plan, so there's not the Coos Bay City, the North Bend, and the county, that it becomes one. And again, guarding, again, I was really thrilled when you asked that question, is this creating loopholes? Is this going to undermine Coos Bay or North Bend? But no, I think what it's going to do is create, phase one will create a comprehensive opportunity, but without phase two, we're really up the creek or the estuary without a paddle, because it's really the going from the structure to the meat of the plan, and we can't afford to go 40 years without doing it again, and that needs to be built in. And those are the things I hope you will advocate for. As people have mentioned, the composition of the citizen committee, re-updating the management units, dredge material, all of that, but also especially making sure this becomes not just a document that sits on the shelf, but one that really guides us going into the future. So thank you all so much.
Thank you, Beverly. Well, it's really some good comments. Most of them had a lot in common, so seems to be a lot of work to be done. Where do we go from here, Chelsea?
Okay, so that was all of our public comments. I will ask Amanda if she wants to provide any response.
If I can get my video to start, sorry about that. I would just say that we have heard and agree with all of the comments that we have been receiving regarding the importance of phase two, or what the county would refer to call potentially phase 2, 3, and 4. Understanding that it's a pretty big project that needs to be defined and then may take multiple stages in order to fund and adequately complete. So the county is calling it future phases versus phase 2, but either way, a comprehensive update is absolutely needed. And we concur as well that a citizen advisory committee needs to be created for that process, as does a technical advisory committee. And the amendments that are proposed to part 1 right now include references to both bodies. We didn't go so far within the current CABEM update as to dictate the membership of those two bodies, leaving that to both the city councils and the county commission at a later date. However, we are recommending right now that we develop a resolution that would define those based on the comments that we're hearing, so that we could adopt that resolution concurrently with the CABEM and make sure that we have a record in writing from all 3 jurisdictions committing to moving forward with that process. That would also be a great tool that will be necessary for that future grant writing, because most grantors will require a resolution from the city councils and county commission to apply for funding for these projects. So that's what I'll say right there. I think you have a draft of the memo. You'll recognize a lot of the terminology that you heard in your comments today from the public was actually grabbed wholesale from those comments, because again, we had a lot of really excellent comment that was provided to us that we wanted to honor.
Thank you, Amanda. And I'll just add, we heard that many people request Planning Commission continue the hearing. And so I think it's fair, if Planning Commission wants to continue this until next month's meeting on August 8th, and even to leave the record open for additional submittal of written comment for 2-week period, which would be, I think, July 25th, and that would allow the time for additional comment and also time for staff to incorporate that into some kind of staff report for you before we then would move on to deliberate and make an actual recommendation. I think by that time we could potentially have a draft of that resolution Amanda referenced, and from there council would be looking at taking up a public hearing on the matter in October. So the actual decision wouldn't come till much later. that time frame between August and October would allow us to incorporate any comments received to date into what's presented to council, and that way we have a really good proposal by the time it gets there. So that would be staff's recommendation. If Planning Commission wants to continue the hearing, continue the matter to the August 8th meeting, but leave the record open for a 2-week period until July 25th, and then we'll come back in August and have our deliberations.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Everybody good with that, Pat?
Yes, somebody make the motion.
Yeah.
Okay, we need a motion?
Yes,
Okay.
please.
So, Pat made the motion. Do we have a second? Second?
Is my motion what Chelsea said?
All right, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay,
Okay, perfect.
2 weeks. All right.
Yeah, so what we'll do is continue this hearing. Well, the hearing will be closed, but we'll continue the deliberations and decision to the August 8th meeting. And in the meantime, we'll allow a 2-week comment period. So the record will remain open for 2 weeks until end of business day, July 25th. So you have all that time to submit additional written comment. And then Planning Commission will come back on August 8th and review everything and make a recommendation. Okay, thank you everyone for coming, participating. Thank you Amanda and Meg and Ashley and Annie.
Thank you, commissioners.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, before Bill runs off, do we have any planning commissioner comments?
Yes.
On his way. Comments? No comment? John?
Just a
Okay.
suggestion.
Staff? Okay, I'm just going to adjourn this thing.
So, does anybody else's screen shut off?
Well, if she's gonna.
No, just yours.
Have a
So,
presentation.
Jim, shut up.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, I got.
We
new
need the
glasses today,
password.
So I could
You
see
got
it, but
You got to rough it up
it'd be
there.
easier,
Oh, that's what we don't have.
Okay, we'll follow up.
because what we got
Okay.
was
Wait,
reservation.
Chair Miller, are we moving on to the next Planning Commission comments?
We just,
We
nobody
just did
had
it.
comments?
We did, okay. And
And
staff has no comments,
Okay,
and so
so. we're done.
adjourn. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Good.
We'll just leave the computers like they are.
Yes.
Do you get my email?
Yes, ups.
It's 3 months.
Yeah, I did. We're working that through. I can't believe that didn't get paid, to be honest with you. Yeah.